Okay, I'll take that as no. I'll share my screen and I'll hand it over to Rupesh to take us through the promotion guide. Just give me one moment, please. I'll share the entire desktop. Okay, hope you folks are able to see my screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
You cast your meeting tab and share your screen on the meeting, so you will see both.
so if I do this one, no, this one. But it is not one.
Cast your entire screen and Chrome page.
No, but I was dropped out.
Cast the nature cast screen and null. And now if you
No, but I cannot see anybody on Zoom. Can you see me?
Call ended, huh?
no, there's a Zoom call. It is in the Zoom application.
What?
Oh,
how I-
Kalyan, we can see the screen. Please go ahead, continue. No worries. We are seeing the HCM master promotion guide. Go ahead.
What is going on? I can see 11 participants.
Okay, yeah. Are you able to see?
Yeah, even I can see the screen. So master promotion guide. So
Yeah, the screen is visible. Sorry, I just checked.
Yeah, so this is the promotion guide. So the table of content is currently we are showing the what is digit services we are using. What is the tags? I mean, what are the images we are using for this 1.0, the basic core digit services, and then the digit services which we have built for the HCM. So these are the image tags. So they are currently QA. We'll change it to production one. Give us like 30 minutes. I can change this.
You will give me the branch from master.
Yes.
I mean, build from master.
Master is the frozen branch. So you will be
Already.
frozen the code. Merge is done. Only this link we will change.
And this for each HCM services we built, right? We have given you the Helm charts where you can use it, and the detailed description of each environment variables. We have given that what is the environment used for each and every service.
We're going to go through each one, or?
No, it's a review. We have already given this walkthrough in the past, but this one.
So Prasanna,
This is already. Hi, yes, Elzan. Yeah.
You're clear with all this, right?
Yeah. This was shared to me a few days back. I have gone through this. It's actually I've actually deployed these images also on our dev.
The documentation is sufficient, right?
This is sufficient, Elzan. Yes.
So Prasanna, you gave two feedback, right? On one was on the error queue details that you needed and a Helm chart.
Yes.
So,
The product helm. There are 3 helms in your repo, right?
yes,
I need I need the actual product helm.
So Rupesh is working on that.
Actually, yeah. Okay. I updated the sheet, Prasanna, what I have given you in the thing, right? But I think this hasn't come here.
Okay.
But in that, we have the error queue one. I also added how to go and see the error queue. Okay, the link, and then the other one you asked with the Helm repo, right? Like that is also I added there.
Okay.
But yeah, you have the document here.
So I have one question also.
Yeah.
So for data seeding, do you have any Postman collection? That I mean, like if you're using any Postman collection for data seeding.
Yeah, so actually you can go here the product side. We can share it separately for you.
Yeah. No, separately only. I mean, yeah, I'm just asking because I went through this document. I felt that was one thing that will also be helpful.
Sorry, Prasanna, what is that? I'll just take a note of it. What
So
Prasanna, yes, there is a Postman collection which, yeah, we'll be sharing it offline. For
Okay,
sure.
Guru.
That is
Okay,
going
Guru.
to
Yeah.
comprise of each of the APIs and every CRUD operation.
Okay, okay, Guru. Sounds good. Yeah.
I think it is there on here also. I'll give you the page actually. I could not able to find out, but we
No,
added.
I think no, the one that is there here, that's part of installation, I think. I think that is the seed for what do you call digit itself, not specific for health.
I think Gurush mentioned he will share it with.
So actually, it was I showed my from my
Oh,
lab,
okay. Sorry. Yeah. If you have it.
From your sister, no?
but I had to open it.
Send me the
June
document.
one.
Then send me the document. If you have a document, send me the document.
I'll share it.
I'll share it. Okay, so Prasanna, if the document is fine, then I'm not sure if you heard. So we'll touch a little on the code walkthrough also. We have Ajil and Naveen with us.
Okay.
So the pieces like offline sync and all, that's a little complex. So Ajil or Naveen can give a walkthrough on that as well, because that will help you. Rest, I think backend services, that's pretty straightforward. Vishal is also aware of that. So that you have an ease to understand the code, we'll give a walkthrough of the offline sync. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right.
I think that is overridden, huh? Actually, the git links.
Okay. Let's do one thing.
So one more, Kalyan. I mean, I'm adding to your list again. So currently, right? Okay. So this is also a question to Elzen as well, because I'm assuming the MDMS config and your DevOps repos, you will merge them back into digit repos. Because because we have forked from other than DevOps, the other two repos are forked from health repos. Now, if you merge, we also will have to go back and do rebasing and do that activity. So I just want to.
DevOps, I guess we will have a separate branch. Or we are going to keep those Helm files as a separate file, right? We have to check how we have done in Urban. I'll check and come back.
Sure, Elzan, that will be helpful. Because what you see, basically what has happened is health has 3 separate repos, which are, I don't know if they're forked from digit or not. So from there, we have forked. Now, ideally, at some point after the product is built, they will merge back. So I'm just looking at what effort it will be for us if we have to do the same. That's where I'm coming from.
You have forked for what reason?
For MDMS config and all, we are creating our own thing, no, Elzan? I mean, so we had to create new repos, right, for those? So I just forked so that it'll be easy to pull any changes, right? Because this product is actually work in progress. So changes will keep coming in and we'll need to keep track and we will need to rebase and pull, no? So that's the reason we have, that's the reason we have, we've created a fork.
Okay, let's discuss that separately.
Sure.
So Prasanna, this one is the tracer library integration. So to add this configuration, the POM is already there.
Okay.
The POM refers to the libraries, common library, and this is a documentation how you have to create that indexer for that queue.
That's okay.
And like how to or indexer config and the Elasticsearch index, how to create that index. Okay, those two are given in this document.
That document.
This is given by Ghanshyam only. Yeah, click on. So okay, this says like you have to create this index, and the index mapping is this one.
Okay.
And there is a
There is an indexer YAML.
yeah. Okay. So if you open this, so this is the topic you need to create on the Kafka, and this will write to this topic. It will start putting into the Elasticsearch.
Okay.
So any data on the error queue I can see on that index.
Yes.
And once it, okay, so after retry, if the data succeeds, will it go from the index?
So that is not implemented still for retry thing and all.
No, Manish was telling me that it is already there, taken care of. So recoverable errors, Manish was telling me that recoverable errors automatically retry will happen. So we should not worry about it, is what he told me, Elson. And he said irrecoverable errors, we have to figure out manual fixes for those.
Yeah, so recoverable errors, at some frequency, what we define, we will have some default 7 number of tries or something like that, right? So my question is, if it passes on the second or third try, will the data go away from the Elasticsearch index? Because how will I know, looking at the index, these are the records that are still in error queue, or everything in the index will be always in the error queue or not? No, but if
I
he's
think that
saying
is
it's not
just,
implemented.
I think the
then,
status will change according to them. So they
then
are
who
like,
can confirm?
so I think
Who's
the
the
document, the Shashwat is a developer. So we can ask Shashwat, like, he has explained us 3 statuses. One is like,
But have somebody from your team tested this?
no, we haven't tested. This is not as part of 1.0, but we have
Should come
taken,
in the next release then, right?
the QA is not qualified, but this is there in that actually. We supposed to that one,
Okay.
but nobody has
Retry
tested.
will not test.
Yeah.
And let's take that.
So, Prasanna, you are okay with this tracer thing, which was a feedback?
Yeah, this is fine. Let me go see if we can set it up.
So there is a Helm chart config also added over here.
Okay. Okay, yeah, this is fine. Helm chart config is fine. I just saw that. Yeah.
Okay.
This is fine. This is fine, Rupesh Kalyan.
Yeah, so Guru will anyway will give you the the API details postman, but here also we've added. You can check this works for each tool. But all pointed to a single one, single registry. All will be there in this one postman collection. This is the redundant link we put it on all actually.
Okay.
Okay, just in the interest of time, we have another 40 minutes. If you're okay, if everyone is okay on this call with the documentation or the steps, we can do a code walkthrough of the offline piece especially.
It's fine with me. Others, unless we have any questions, I mean, Shubhranshu, Vishal, Hazel.
Nice.
Okay. All right, so I'll stop sharing. Between Ajil and Naveen, I mean, if one of you can please share your screen and give a walkthrough of the offline piece specifically, because that's a complex one. So, Ajil, would you like to take a stab at that?
Sorry, I think I lost you for a small bit.
Okay.
This would walk through, right?
Yeah, the code walkthrough of the offline piece. So, Prasanna, one more thing. So, Shubhranshu has worked on the stock part, also has some knowledge of the checklist. So, that's the reason we are not covering that. Vishal, as you know, he has extensively worked on the backend. So, as a priority of this call, we are taking up this particular module, the offline module.
Okay.
That's a complex piece.
Okay.
Yeah. Ajil, are you sharing your screen?
This is the manual sync part, right?
Right.
I think I'll have to rejoin. I'm not able to share.
Oh, Naveen, will you be able to share?
Given access. Maybe post.
Oh, one participant. Are you not able to share, Ajil?
I have to give permission. Yeah, Naveen is sharing. Yeah.
Okay. Naveen, you okay to give the walkthrough of the code? Naveen, if you're speaking, then you're on mute. We can't hear you.
He's not able to figure out how to unmute.
Oh.
Hello. Sorry,
Okay.
sorry. Yep. I can give, but it would be great if Agil had have taken it up. I can just share the screen.
ठीक.
Yep. Agil, shall I navigate through the parts? Or...
Sure, sure. Can you switch over into the dev mode? Just hit dot.
Acha. At the first, right?
Digit.dev.
No, just hit dot on the keyboard. Just hit dot. It will open Visual Studio Code startup. No, come out of this. Just hit dot. Yeah.
So yeah, just to give a briefer context, so ideally we have segregated the complete project into multiple sub projects. Whatever the packages you're seeing, that is an extended library, so which any other project can utilize this. So it has a digit component. So like where ideally we have specified each and every component which will be like utilizing throughout the application, and this data has been pulled to this project via plugin. That is somewhere here. Yep, you're able to see this, right? So every time if there are any changes in that, ideally we update the version so that the end users will be able to consume the latest changes. Yep, handing over to you, Ajay.
Yep, thanks, Naveen. Okay, so basically to go over the app itself, most of our code is inside apps/health campaign fieldworker app. If you expand the lib folder, yeah, so this is the segregation we have done. So we have separated the code primarily into blocks. Then there is a data layer, and then there is the presentation layer, which is split in between pages and widgets. Yeah, okay. Now inside pages, we have tried to make a separation based on modules. So we have a beneficiary module over there, then we have registration, then we have checklist, and then we have the inventory related pages. For handling navigation between the different pages, we are using a package called AutoRoute, and we have added the configuration for that inside app router.dart. Yep, so that should handle the presentation layer. Now coming into the data layer, we'll go with the models first. So for the data to work, we need to consume data from API services and also be able to parse the JSON response we receive, and also serialize, deserialize, and all those things. So for that, we are using a library called as Dart Mappable for serialization, and that is done inside. Naveen, can you go over into the models folder?
Yep.
And collapse. Yes. So inside models, Naveen, if you scroll to the bottom of this folder into data model. Yeah. So this is basically the how we have structured the data, how we are going to access the data. So to help pass the same kind of data into different classes, we have created something called entity model. Then there is something called entity search model. Entity search model is what we use in the search queries, while entity data model is what usually comes back in a API response. The data entity itself, and both extend from data model. So we did all this so that we can wire up the remaining portions, which I'm going to talk about now. So I'm defining all the data model types over here, audit logs, additional fields. So all that is defined inside this particular class. So this is pretty important for you to understand. Now to define the classes itself, we have created configurations. So this configuration, can you open individual.json?
Hey, Ajil, just one thing, please keep checking if somebody has any queries also in between,
Huh, sure. Yep, so there's a proper time to ask any questions. Okay, I'll take that as no. So we have created a JSON configuration for creating models. So why we did this is because for our app to connect to properly work, we need. Okay, so before I go into this, let's go over into the repository section first. Then I'll come back to this. That would make more sense. Naveen, can you go over to repositories? Yeah. So the repositories is how we connect the presentation layer with our actual data layer. So this acts as the intermediate, and in our case, we have two data sources. One is the data that we fetch from the server or the remote APIs basically, and then we have a local data store as well. In this case, which is a SQL DB. So to effectively communicate between the remote repository and the local repository, we created an abstraction called repository, data repository. So that code you can see inside data repository dot. Yeah. So this is the basic interface we have defined to share data between these classes. So every single data repository, it should have a create, update, or delete. So we don't have the implementation over here. Now, when we fetch data from the remote endpoints, we use a subclass of remote repository, which is defined over here, line number 31. Yes.
One second.
Right. So this is how we create a remote repository. But the advantage of remote repository is that since we are using digit services, most of the services follow the same pattern. So we don't have to rewrite the entire code for the remote repository in every place. Since the pattern is similar. Naveen, can you go back to remote repository once? Data repository. Yeah. So inside remote repository, we have handled most of the logic for actions such as bulk create, bulk update, and all those things. So all that is already written over here, and we had to override the code over here only in a couple of classes. Everywhere else, we are using this code as is. So that is the purpose of creating this level of abstraction over here. So this logic doesn't change. So we have used a lot of generics. And yeah, so this is basically where I was talking about that entity models before. So this is where we pass in a query to the as a request, and we receive back the the entity models as a response. Again, I know this is too much, but any questions?
One question, Ajil. I mean, so when you're calling this repository function, right, where you send the request, is it happening on the main thread or on the background thread?
We don't we don't have a specific concept of using thread like that. So it works asynchronously, so it doesn't block the UI as such.
Acha. So unlike Android, so in Android we'll typically have to specify foreground or background thread, right, for this. I mean, so that is not there in that. Okay.
That is not there. So this behaves more like JavaScript with the event loop concept.
Okay.
So it doesn't freeze the main thread, but you are right. We haven't created any isolates to run them in a separate isolate worker or something. So we haven't done that yet.
Okay. Is there any plan to do that, or at least not for this version?
Not for this version, definitely. So we haven't really worked out on all the optimization features as of now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
this is the remote repository part. On the local repository, just over here itself, Naveen, can you scroll down a little bit more? Same class, scroll down. Okay. Now
I was saying that we can take that up as tech debt maybe later.
Right. Down, Naveen, it's at the very end. Okay. So similar to how we had the remote repository, we also have something called local repository. So the responsibility of local repository is if we receive data from the remote repository, we also need to create a copy of that inside the local database, right? So when we do that, it also needs to persist some data into op logs if we want to create an update. So all that code, at least the base code is over here. So there is a lot of customization that we have to do for the local repositories, which is why we don't have a lot of logic inside this abstract class. So we have had to write implementation for every local repository on our own, but for remote repository that wasn't required. So now, Naveen, if you go into remote repositories first. Yeah, let's go with individual. Yeah. So basically, there is no logic over here other than having to specify at line number 14 what the data model type is going to be for this particular repository. Also, line number 10, where we specify what the entity name is going to be. So this is all very useful for parsing data from the server.
Okay.
So we had to write the same repository again and again, sorry, the same code again and again for all of them, right? So all the classes that you see on the left, so we would have to repeat the same logic again and again. Okay, so that's a repetitive task that we had to do. So that is one reason. And now if you go over to Naveen, if you go over to oplog, no, sorry, not oplog, models, the model classes, entities, sorry, models folder down. Nope. Yes, entities. For every single model that's defined on the backend, we also need a copy of that on the front end. So that is what we are doing over here. Again, this is the parameters which are being used in the search model and the parameters which are being used in the individual model itself, they are very similar. And we have one-to-one mapping in most cases to the tables that we actually create on the SQL side as well. So Naveen, can you go over to the SQL folders also?
So one question. So your view object and so okay, your response object and the view object are it has one-to-one mapping, is it? You don't need to do any translation. You don't need to do any object mapping.
No, we don't need to. So the data that we actually store in SQL, so this is the data model for that. So we create a table model, and this is the data that we actually need to write into the database. But the model that we use throughout the app, that is the other entity models that I had shown before, which Naveen is opening right now. So this one. Okay, now the data over here, this is how we convert between our data model and between our table structure. So all this code, we would have had to write all of this manually, and we would also have to make changes in 4 or 5 different places if one of the parameter changes on the backend specs. So to remove that overhead, what we have done is we have created something called model configs. Naveen, I'll come there. Yeah, so model configs, and over here we define all of these as JSON files. So we specify the different attributes, whether they should be included for a query, whether it's a primary key, whether it's nullable, the data type. If there is linkage between one data model and another data model, that we do inside custom attributes. If there are enums, we define them over here. So things like that. So once we do all this, there is a package in Flutter called Mason. So what Mason does is it's a templating interface, and by using some command line, it would help us generate code based from a base template. So that is what we have done inside this folder. So there is another inside this monorepo, there is one more package called Mason templates. So inside Mason templates, we have something called digit entity. So inside digit entity, the whatever we see inside the brick folder, right? So all that is a template. And using this template, we generate the tables, the remote repository, the entity model, the entity search model, and the converter between the entity model and the table data. So that is what we have over here, this section.
Okay. Achha, so even okay, so all of this is actually generated from a JSON basically. So if things need to change, we have to just go modify the JSON and things will automatically fall into place.
Right. In some cases, what we noticed is for the, let's say for the checklist endpoint, it does at least the starting code, we can get it via generating like this, but then we had to make a lot of customization over there. So in that case, we then deleted the JSON file so that it doesn't overwrite the code that we have already written.
Okay. So when does this generation actually happen? Does it happen runtime, or do we have to run some command to actually do this generation?
You have to run a command to run this generator.
Okay.
Okay, so all of this we are sorry.
No.
So if you have to modify, if you have to add a field or something, I have to change the JSON and re-execute, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Continue.
So we have tried to specify exactly what needs to be done. So the README actually needs to be updated a little bit. We did make a few changes in the last couple of weeks, so which is not updated in the README, but overall the general structure is already here.
Okay.
Yeah. So now coming to the next part, which is the sync part. For the app to work, the main intention is to make sure that even while the device is offline, we do not block the user. So any data entry that the user does, we have to persist it locally. And whenever there is a network, or if the user acts on a CTA and triggers a sync, then we need to pick up data from the local database and send it to the server. So we had this discussion a long time back, so I'm not going over all of it, but the final consensus was that we would be storing data inside our local SQL store, which is the actual source of truth for the front-end app. But to write it into the database, and we do need to maintain a separate operational log. Operational log is going to be the collection of API requests that should replicate the local state on the server. Okay, so basically when we run the app, and once we create an individual, once we do a beneficiary registration, the oplog will have the collection of API request bodies that are required to duplicate the same request on the remote side. So to do that, we have created another database, which is a NoSQL database, and it's called ISAR. Okay, it's written in Flutter pure Dart. So that's the database that we use to do this. And this is how we create the data model for that particular, for the NoSQL database. Okay, and over here we store the entity, the data that we have to actually send to the database. Now the entire logic between when we have to send, when we have to sync up, or when we have to sync down, or whether we have to persist something locally, or whether we have to persist something remote, all of that happens within Network Manager. So Network Manager needs the list of all our repositories, the local and the remote ones, and based on the network persistence configuration, it will decide where it has to persist. So most of the logic is handled over here. And based on whatever network configuration is already set up over here, if we do network manager dot repository, it would return the appropriate repository for us, be it local or be it remote. For the version 1.1, we haven't tested with the persistence configuration. So the persistence configuration by default is offline first. And under offline first, when we do network manager.repository, it will always return the local repository. When we write to local repository, so Naveen, now I think would be a good time to go into one of the local repositories. When we do a create into a local,
Ajil, just one more.
This local repository, this NoSQL DB, at what point is that getting created? Is it coming as part of your APK?
The database. Yes, as soon as we install the app, the database is set up, the tables are created, and it's ready to take in data.
Okay, that's tested, right?
Yes.
Yeah, carry
on. All right.
Ajil, I had a quick question. Where are we storing the configuration? Is it on MDMS? Offline or online sync?
That comes from MDMS, yes.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, then again, another question. I mean, so for example, right, I mean, we have all these location data, boundary data, all of this, right? That will also have an impact for your mobile application. Now, how frequently would they get updated, right? So because I mean, one thing is on MDMS, if I go and make a change,
yes,
when is the change so how is that change going to appear on the mobile app?
Right. So as of now, the current how it works currently is every time you open the app,
Mhm.
and if you're connected to the internet, it will try to fetch in all the data from MDMS and store it locally on your device.
The first time, I mean, like every time I close the app and open it.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But if you're offline and if you try to fetch, the API will fail and it will load whatever data is already there on the local.
Okay.
But ideally, what we are trying to build in is every MDMS configuration has something called config, and over there it has a local store time to live, TTL.
That's a TTL. Okay.
So as long as we will be keeping track of when a when a app config module was loaded into MDMS into a local data store, and if the TTL hasn't crossed, we won't be fetching it back again. So once the TTL has crossed, then we would be fetching it. So that's the logic that we need to put in, but it's not there for this version.
Okay. If you are putting in TTL, will there be a way to force pull the data?
As of now, there has not been a discussion around that, and if required, we can do it, but I don't think there was any requirement for that.
So Prasanna, you're coming from a point where the master data changes within the campaign.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, maybe we'll have to discuss this with Manisha and team, and we can take it offline if that's okay.
Abhishek is also putting up a concept note, right, Abhishek, around this based on a discussion with Frank and all.
Yeah, I have already circulated internally, so I'm yet to get the feedback for that.
Abhishek, if you can start engaging Manish also, I mean, if you can send that out, so that if he has any early thoughts, we can start discussing on these lines.
Is there a way we can have a force sing down? I mean, like now I know first time it will sing down, but on need base, if I want to sing down.
Ajil, any comments?
There is technically there is no block for us to do that. We could have a button somewhere where if we press, it will always fetch the latest MDMS config. Technically, there is no block for us. We just haven't done it yet.
Now with every sync up, it will do sync up and then down, right? So there is no data.
No, MDMS data, once this is completely done as per design, MDMS data will be fetched only if local MDMS copy is not there or if the TTL has expired. So that's the only two conditions we are considering as of now to build. Okay. Any other requirement of having to force pull down, that can be done. There is no technical block as such.
Okay, but Prasanna, Abhishek, it's a request if we can float this with Manisha as well. If we are saying that we'll have to do something like this.
We will need, no, Elzan, I mean, we'll need this, right? I mean, because master data is keeping on changing. We can't keep changing the expiry date. I think we'll need a way to pull the data down, no? Elzan?
But I don't think a button on the screen alone will help. It should be some.
So maybe the current approach is actually right? I mean, Ajil was just saying that if they close the app and reopen, it will always, if network is there, it will always download MDMS fresh.
It has its own challenges, no?
Yes, one big problem with that is the boundary data is quite large. So pulling that in every single time is going to be very network intensive.
Let's note this down and have a deeper discussion with Manish.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, just putting it out, the reason why we went for the TTL thing is because we were under the impression that MDMS data is always going to be slow changing, and during the course of a campaign, there won't really be any need to update it. But yeah, I understand the edge cases that might come up. So yeah, having a mechanism to force this would definitely be good. But yeah, we need to think through it.
Okay. Thank you, Ajil. Yeah, we'll make a note. I think Abhishek, I think we need to circulate this also, right? The fetch down part.
Yeah, the one which I was doing was the GPS enablement.
Okay.
This was not considered.
Okay, so then this also we need to put up, I think.
Yeah.
I'll continue on this.
Yes, sorry for interrupting.
No worries. Now, coming back into the local repository, this is an example for how we create a local copy of individuals. All right, Naveen, can you go over to the create method?
Just a time check, Ajal, 15 minutes remaining. So yeah.
Okay, I'll finish this off in the next.
Don't
minutes.
rush, but yeah, let's see.
So once we hit the create method, all we need is the line number 171. We need the individual model. Okay. Once we have that, it will extract the address, it will extract the identifiers, the companion, okay, entity.companion that we are doing at line number 178, 179, that would convert our data model into the data that the table needs, SQL table needs. And then we run some batch writes, inserts, and it persists the data. But after all this is done, we also need to make sure that we are writing this into the oplog, because only data that's present in the oplog will be synced up to the server. So that's what super.create does. So this overrides this invokes the method which is there in the parent, and inside parent, the super.create would actually create this entity into, it will create a copy of this entity inside the oplog. So yeah, this is the create method. And if by default the create oplog, yeah, I mean, that's the one, line number 310. So 310, you're on the right place. So if the create oplog, which by default is true, then it will create the oplog entry. And this is how we do it, line number 325 downwards. So once data is there in the oplog, the next process is, once the call sync up CTA has been called, we need to pull data from the oplog, which matches this condition, which has not been synced up yet, and to send it to the server. So all that is handled inside the class called oplog manager. Okay, oplog manager has, yeah, you're on the right class, Naveen. Yeah. So oplog manager has a couple of methods which do this. So there is something called get pending sync items. So that pending upsync, right? So we are segregating this into two different sync modes. So one is upsync, where we send data which is already persisted on the local into the remote. Okay. So that is, so we have some code for that. This filters all that data and returns it back. Now the next type is pending sync down. So how the backend works is, we send all the data as a bulk request. So we don't get back the ID which is generated on the server right away with that request. So before we can do any updates or any deletes, we need to make sure that we have fetched the server generated ID back into our database. Not just that, we also have to make sure that all our oplog entries for that particular entity also has a server generated ID. So to do that, we first need to fetch all the data that has already been synced up. So that's where this get pending sync down method comes in. It will fetch all the data and it will try to get the server generated ID and update it in the relevant places inside the oplog. Once that is done, we call the mark sync up method or the mark sync down method based on which operation it was. The update server generated, that block handles writing the server generated to every entity. So yeah, that's pretty much inside oplog manager. Rest I think happens inside the network manager. Naveen, can you go over there? So inside network manager, the basic concept is we group all entities that need to be written down into one single request. We send it, we do a down sync, fetch the server generated ID into our local database, and only entities that have server generated IDs can be updated or deleted. So we make that call. So for that, we have a lot of code over here. I don't think I have time to go over in detail over all of them, but the code is, I think it's straightforward. So just, yeah, have a look and let me know if you have any questions.
So Prasanna, if needed, we can schedule another follow-up call. Sorry. Okay, but yeah, I mean, just feel free to go through it. Let us know.
Yeah. Ajil, I had a quick question. Like, we can perform these operations only on data which has server generated ID.
Yes.
Okay. So when we do an upsync, we again fetch the data to get the server generated IDs.
Right. So the only operation that can work without server generated ID is a create.
Got it, man.
Okay. All right. So yeah, any questions, anyone? We still have 8 minutes. We can go
So
through.
one area I was thinking is, so we are doing this bulk. So oplog we are pushing in bulk, right, to the backend, and then there is this whole search operation we are doing to kind of retrieve the server generated IDs and update the SQL tables. If you can actually point that out, that also might be helpful, right, Shubhranshu? That whole logic.
Yes, that might be helpful, but I think it's there in the code which Ajil showed.
That's right. Was it? Okay. Sorry, I made a mistake. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I think that.
Yeah. Anything else that you need us to walk us through? So this is, I mean, I know there's it's a checklist for implementation handover, final handover, but the team is going to be there, so we can have follow-up calls or any questions that we have.
Any payload that you need, Prasanna?
I mean, other than data seed and the Postman collection, I think that is what I will need, Dilson. Otherwise, we have good, I think.
Kalyan, I had a question.
Yeah.
Are you going to give a branch or a repo from where we can make a fork for our implementation?
So it will be the master repo. From there, you can maybe branch out.
Okay, so the latest master is from where I can branch out.
Correct. Guru, Guru, I hope you will be sending out that seed data and the Postman collection to Prasanna or to this group basically.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll send the Postman thing.
Today
the whole of
you can do that, right?
Yeah, I'll do it after this call.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so if there are no questions, Prasanna, Shubhranshu, or all the implementation team. So if there are no other questions, is this okay? I mean, the handover is fine. It's on now.
Prasanna, I've already tried deploying, right? So
Yeah, this is deployed, Delson. I mean, the document was shared a few days back. So I deployed the same I mean, the containers that were given were deployed. If they have been changed, I'll go look at it and I'll redeploy again.
APK also have you checked?
APK we haven't checked, Delson. We have to do that now.
That also before.
We'll do that.
Ajil, we have a script to create an APK, na? We can share that also to reduce some time.
Yeah. All those, there are a few utility scripts that we use. All of them are inside a folder called tools in the same repo. So there's the APK script also is over there.
Otherwise, how is it? You will upload the APK somewhere?
We'll not APK because whatever you have to change, you'll have to generate the APK every
So
time.
that's how it
So if you have the scripts, you can do it on your own. Yeah. Okay, so if there is nothing else, can I take this as that we are good with the implementation handover?
Just one last thing, please send me the commit ID for the master from which I can make a branch.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
So the testing is still ongoing, or is that also completed?
No. Testing is done. We have got a QA sign off.
Okay.
We are just waiting on product sign off, which Mrunal is doing.
Okay.
We did not do a showcase app walkthrough here because we have a release showcase, Prasanna. I mean, one from 4 to 6. More or less the same thing. It will be more detailed actually. So yeah.
just one thing from Mrunal, like nothing major, no major bugs open, right? Where to take the branch?
Yes, it is fair to take the branch call, and we want to talk about the 4 known open issues and also the plan to fix them.
Yeah. Guru, I'll share the screen, but are you okay to talk about those?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let me share my screen. I think it's only being casted over here.
Until that, I'll just give a background. So we had around, so I think the total number of bugs that we have raised, whether through the bug patch or to our internal testing, to the UX audit, observations and bugs were approximately like 250-300. We did a analysis of the bugs that were open, which were on P1, P2, P3. We have prioritized everything. All P1 issues have been fixed. There were some usability issues that were some were enhancements that we have a plan to take it up in the backlog. Some are very crucial, like there was no logout button on the project creation page. If the project does not load, there is no way for the user to go back or do anything. So things like these have been incorporated in the bill that we have right now. So out of all of those, these are the only 4 that are pending. And I don't believe there is an immediate impact of going passing it to with these open, provided we already have like the end date and the start dates for each of those. Guru, you can just give the summary and then I just pitch in wherever required.
Sure. Yeah, let's go point by point. The first one, 2236, right? So currently within the app showcase, which we'll be having going forward, you'll notice that we are able to select the boundaries whenever a user logs into the application, and we already display the boundaries based on the user's project, right? So there has to be a little bit of integration that is still pending. So it says that the boundary data, although we are already picking up from MDMS, right? So this has to be propagated going forward through all the API calls that we are making, right? So that is one point that has to be integrated. We have the boundary data present locally within the mobile. We just have to propagate it within the API calls. This is a small task which we are targeting to complete by 7th April, right? So that is one part. The second one, HLM 2094, whenever we log in, right? So we expect that there are few pop-ups such that users get some feedback. This is especially necessary in case of Mozambique Impel, wherein the sync up time will be quite large, right? So within India or within Wi-Fi networks that we have, the data just comes like this. So we do not see any pop-ups for now. So we have to handle the pop-ups and the process wherein if there are failures, we can throw those particular failures as well. This is one thing which we'll be trying to complete by 31st March. This is already underway. Ajil probably is working on it. In our application, moving on to the next one, 2093, there is a help icon which will be used to provide the walkthrough of that particular screen to the end user. Currently, we have built this walkthrough for the home screen, and that is the only part that has been completed as of now. But obviously, going forward, it is customizable. It is an open sort of, I mean, it is a configurable sort of code piece, wherein depending on the screen, whatever is the walkthrough that the application intends to put can be customized, right? So we have done it only for the home screen as of now, right? So that is where we are. The going forward stuff have to be implemented. Ajil, Naveen, confirm if I'm stating this correctly or wrong. This is for the help icon.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Next,
ideally we made it as a plugin part, so hence it is taken much time as expected.
correct. If it were to be just one generic solution, it would have been done. But since it has to be a reusable component for each of the screens wherein we have to provide walkthrough, it has been made as a plugin, right? The next one, that is 2235. This is one scenario which is quite rare to happen, but obviously it is bound to happen within prod, right? With respect to the address updates or the individual updates, right? But from what we know for the Impel for Mozambique, right, we are not going to capture the complete address part specifically for that particular Impel. That is why we have raised this as a known defect, which we are currently working upon as well, which we want to complete by 7th April.
Yeah, and just to add, Guru, that this does not break the
This
overall.
does not block. Yes, this does not block the user from creating any data. The mobile apps works fine. It is the backend part that has to be handled correctly. So that is where we are, right? So that is this part. It does not going to hamper the progress of the campaign registration and service delivery. It is only something that has to be worked upon by the backend. We have to come up with some strategy for that, and we are working already on that. we want to target to finish it the QA sign off by 7th April. This is the things. Yeah. So any questions?
Yeah, Guru, have you tested the app on the phone? Not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
actual phone. You have.
Sorry?
So Lelzan asking, have you tested it on emulator or on phone?
No, I've always tested on the device that will be used in prod, the Samsung Galaxy A03, that device.
Acha, okay.
And I also have my personal phone, as well as we also got good set of devices when we did the what do you say, the bug bash last week, right? So we also had some good sets of devices over there as well, which had been used. And Mrinal has collected some data with respect to that. Mrinal, would you like to speak about that?
Yes, so after the bug bash, we sent out a form. What is the device you're using? What RAM do you have? What was the battery at the beginning, battery at the end? What is the Android version that you're using? All of that. So from that, not a lot of people filled that form. So out of 25 odd people who raised bugs, only 8 or 10 I think filled the form. We're looking at just that. No stark observations. Battery usage for 1.5 hours, considering we also had WhatsApp and other applications in the phone, was like 7 to 10% difference, which is okay because of heavy applications. RAM mostly they are like a 4 GB RAM. Our phones are having more than that, so that is also good. Android version mostly it was the latest version, unlike N-2 and N. No very old versions came in, and so I think with the phone that we are going to go live with, and also the screen was longer, so the resolution was beautiful. So for screens that had longer displays.
Yeah.
And this version is a pure Android app.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yes,
Because
this is only Android. Yeah.
no web streams. Web streams.
No
will-
web, no web, no iOS. Yeah. That's
Guru,
it.
confirm it. iOS also it works perfectly fine because we run in
Yeah,
emulator.
iOS, yeah, we ran in the emulator, but iOS works fine. We also have tested some parts with respect to the Android emulators as well, and that also seems to be working fine. Google Pixel 2a, I believe, that was the Android emulator that we had used, and iPhone 14 with the latest iOS, what do you say, OS version. I don't know what that is. We have tested with that as well, and the screen doesn't break, and we get a very good user experience. Yeah.
And just to add to that, Alzan, I mean, to add to some more confidence, Andrew has done a thorough UX audit of the application. Whatever high priority observations he had raised, we have fixed that. Okay, and so the medium and low ones we could not finish because of the time constraint.
It's a good picture.
Yeah, but
It's a very decent number.
Overall, the positive feedback which we had received specifically from the bug bash was people liked the application UI. It was quite intuitive, and probably they also liked the flow and how smooth it was. Probably Mrunal, who is there, can speak more about it. Go ahead. With respect to the easiness or the thing that they saw.
Housekeeping again.
So there were two sets of users, right? One was people coming from a tech background, who are QAs, developers. The other were non-tech, policy, Parcom, admin, even Manju did a thorough testing that day. And so basically we wanted to do two things. First, see functionality is breaking. Those were bugs that were identified. Localization was something that was highlighted many times. We could not cover all localization keys, but they got that. The other was how do users interact. So really one common thing is this bar, right? On the beneficiary registration page, we have metrics, how many household registered, how many
distributed.
people are clicking on that bar because they thought clicking on this would open that page which shows who are these people. So these are things that we observed. The other thing was on SIM data because they weren't trained. So this app, one assumption is this app needs some training to proceed. If we would have trained them, they would have known how to do their job. So because of that, also some usability issues came, which I have disregarded with proper reason. If I tell you how to do your job, you need to do it. Similarly, one thing on the auto calculation part, the app tells you how many bed nets should you deliver. It is not very visible. It is camouflaging that cluster of data. So Andrew is now working on some UX enhancement to make sure people look at that first and then deliver based on whatever it is showing. So some issues like that, but nothing major. The thing that they liked was the UI was clean, the app was responsive, there was no latency on the page that I clicked on a button and I have to wait for 10 seconds, 5 seconds for it to load. So that was very fast. Sync also they tried to do, so they viewer appliances that sync would take a longer time. That wasn't the case. In fact, today morning, like after everything was done, I created around 20-25 records, and around 30 records took 6 seconds. And this was the average. 6 to 8 seconds, 30 to 50 records were getting pushed out. So even if you take count of like 200 on a 4G, it will not take more than a minute.
Even with 2 GB hai to bhi
You are syncing to the QA server now.
UAT.
UAT.
All UAT through master. I mean, whatever is there in master.
We have two builds, Aldan, one for QA, one for UAT. So we have given them the UAT APK and they are playing with that. Yeah.
because this will include in the SOP campaign D, like maximum 1 minute के अंदर में तो हो ही जाएगा 1 से 1.5 minute के अंदर data sync.
Yeah.
That, like itne margin mein you should at least be patient till that time.
Did you try any stress testing like half waves breaking, how it performs?
Yes. I filled half the form, killed the app. I filled half the form, went back. I filled the whole thing, everything, like whatever I could do.
Syncing also
Syncing
halfway.
also. If it is halfway, if the transaction is not complete, I don't even see a record getting created. Unless I click something.
Your battery is on.
No, I killed that. I filled like on the individual details page, there are many fields. I put the name, I put the ID, and I killed the app. I again logged in. Nothing happened. It's like the record wasn't even created in the local. I checked that as well. So everything possible that I could think of, we have done. Guru has done a thorough testing. The devs have done a thorough testing. From today morning, Roshan carried the baton forward. He has done a thorough testing. I don't think I am very certain now this will work.
That's what. If you have the confidence,
I have the confidence.
it gives us a lot more confidence. Good job. I think you guys had tough time.
Tough time. This week was a little tough time.
Yeah,
Last week.
sure.
Last like after 4 to 6 for now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, we are 9 minutes overdue, but healthy discussions. So if we are all okay, if we are good, we'll close the call.
Tomorrow is the gate, right?
Tomorrow is the gate.
9:30.
So Prasanna, everyone, I consider that the implementation handover is more or less through.
Let Prasanna say yes, no.
So
Why
yeah.
are you-
No, I'm not considering. So Prasanna, please, yes, no. No is unclickable because the radio button will keep moving if you go to that.
No, I mean, yeah. So the mobile app, we'll just test out the mobile app, but for the back end, we'll consider this handed over.
Sure. Okay.
I'm assuming that you'll share UAT tags after QA sign off.
Give us some time. Rupesh is on it. So by today end of day, we'll close that and share it.
Whenever, yeah. Whenever, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Bye.
all. Bye.